Howdy, folks. I'm Slow Showers, snaking serpentine snooker shots.
I'm Amber.
And here are more serpentine snooker shots for us to snake around.
I don't know if I even know what snooker is.
Snooker is like a pool. So let's get started. All right, folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk? I didn't tell my fiance that I had a boob job before we met. I'm 24, and I've been with my fiance for almost 3 years, engaged for a half year. Prior to meeting him, when I was 18, I had a breast augmentation. I was an A cup and not confident whatsoever, so I did a lot of research at the time to get the most realistic look possible. I went with gummy bear under the muscle in case any girlies were wondering. I don't gatekeep, and you genuinely can't even tell. I never brought it up while we were dating. Obviously, he's seen pictures of me as a teen compared to now, but I guess he just thought that puberty did its thing. I don't know. It never came up naturally, and I didn't see the need to go to him and be like, oh, by the way, my boobs are fake, especially if he wasn't able to notice by seeing and touching. Recently, though, I've been starting to have some symptoms that might be related to the breast implants. Tired more than usual, joints hurt, feeling off in general, etc. After looking into it more, I think that it could be the implant illness, and I'm heavily considering getting the girls taken out. I already went to a consultation. Because of that, I finally told him. I thought the time has come since it possibly is affecting my well-being now. He didn't take it well at all. He said that I catfished him and should have told him earlier because this kind of complication has always been a real possibility. He also said that if he had known, it would have mattered to him, especially since it might entail another surgery and more health stuff in the future. I was thrown off by his reaction. I can see how it affects him now in a way, but it was something confidential I did to my own body way before I knew him. I don't think that I was obligated to tell anyone unless it somehow became relevant, which I guess it currently has. He says that it's about trust and transparency, but I feel like he's making it a bigger deal than it is. All right, folks, what do you think?
No, not the jerk. I mean, any surgery can pose some complications down the line. That doesn't mean you need to, when you meet someone, go down a laundry list of, oh, well, I had my wisdom teeth out and this and that and, the other thing. But I think you're getting a very important lesson right now, OP, on the kind of person he really is. It seems like he doesn't like the idea of being with someone who might have health complications whatsoever, which any person, even if you've never had surgery, you could have some kind of illness or something that you will need surgery for down the line. And I'm getting the vibes that he is the kind of guy who's going to nope out as soon as you're on the operating table, the kind of person who, if you get in a bad spot, it doesn't work for his life anymore. He wants a girlfriend who is just perfectly healthy and not an inconvenience to him ever.
I do think that it's important to tell partners medical information to some degree, right? I think if this had been a vasectomy, for instance, if, her partner had a vasectomy, it would probably be an important thing for them to know and understand and kind of discuss because that's would impact their future potentially, right? And when it comes to medical things and medical privacy, it's always tricky because everyone's entitled to medical privacy. But I do also think that in relationships, there are certain things that, you should discuss. And health things could be important, especially if you might be in a situation where you need to advocate for your partner and their health in an emergency situation. So I do think there's some level of complication there. With that said, I think that the way he's acting now is very telling, right? The fact that he's you catfished me, that these complications were always realistic, something that could have happened, and blaming OP for a medical concern or a medical condition. And I think that's very telling of his character. And the thing is that anyone who has breast tissue is at risk of getting something like breast cancer, right? And so the fact of the matter is that there was always a real risk that she might have to have a surgery or an operation on her breasts, right? And the fact that he's just treating this so callously, I think, is really telling of his character and the kind of person that he is. And maybe this might be a good time for OP to reflect on the relationship as a whole and see if there are other red flags here.
Yeah, well, I definitely think reflecting on the relationship is a good idea. I would say that like the vasectomy example is a little different because that affects both of them and that affects the couple's fertility.
Yeah.
I see this again more along the lines of wisdom teeth, where like if you hadn't been the one to nurse me through my wisdom tooth surgery, like I don't know if it's anything I would have thought to bring up just because it's kind of like not something I really think about ever.
Yeah. And that's fair too. Like, if there's not a good time to bring up a conversation, it's not like this is first date type of conversation for a lot of people. Maybe some people would be like, oh, I got them augmented, right, on their first date. But I don't know. Like, there's always, when it comes to medical things, there's always, timing is always like an important thing. Like, bringing it up or having a conversation about it. And OP, felt like now was an appropriate time to bring it up because it was impacting her overall health. So it was relevant in the moment here, right?
Yeah. Well, and like even when I'm filling out like medical forms, they'll ask you about past surgeries. Like I had to really like I sometimes almost forget my wisdom teeth because like again, it's just not something I think about because it's so inconsequential. And like maybe Opie thinks about this more, but maybe she doesn't really think about it at all, and it's just not like on her mind anymore. Because once you get a few years past surgery,
Yeah.
it's like
Just becomes natural and part of your whole self, right? But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Will I be a jerk if I feed meat to a kid that comes from a vegetarian family? My daughter is 13 and has a friend, 12, that comes from a family that I believe is Hindu. They're Indian, and per my daughter, don't eat meat for religious reasons. We're having a slumber party for her birthday, and when I texted the parents asking if there's anything that I need to know, her dad replied that she doesn't eat meat. But per my daughter, her friend is very meat curious, and always asks to try their lunch. The plan is to have everyone put in a Chipotle order for dinner. Will I be the jerk if she requests meat and I order it for her, even though her father told me that she doesn't eat meat? Edit to add, to be clear, I wouldn't force meat on her. I'm just wondering if I should refuse her meat if she asks for it. All right, folks, what do you think?
Yeah, OP, I think that as her guardian in this particular situation, like you gotta listen to the parents on this. Now, I wouldn't police her, like if she wants to try meat from the other girls' meals or something like that. But when you agree to host a child and you're given a set of dietary restrictions, I think it's important that you adhere to them to the best of your ability. Like some parents may restrict their child's like sugar or processed foods or anything like that. And if you're knowing that, you either have to, one, tell the parent, I cannot accommodate this request, or two, adhere to the request. If you go behind their back, you're being untrustworthy as a guardian of the child.
I'm conflicted here. I do think like the kid has a right to choose what they want to eat, and if they want to eat meat and they don't share their parents' religious views, I also don't feel like they should be forced into that. And I think that this is a difficult situation because you're right, there is like the parent who is explicitly told OP she doesn't eat meat, we don't want her eating meat. Now, I will say this. I think that the best approach to this kind of situation is to order something like a party platter that has both meat options and non-meat options, and to say, have at it, girls. You can have what, I'm not going to sit here and monitor how you eat your food or something like that, right? And then if OP, if she goes ahead and takes a non-meat option, she was supplied with if she eats a meat option, that's on her. If she chooses to eat a non-meat option, that's on her as well, and not on OP's hands at that point in time. So that's kind of how I feel about the situation. I think that, not eating meat is a deeply ethical choice for some people, and certainly I can understand the parents not wanting her to eat meat for ethical reasons. But if she doesn't share their same ethical reasons, I also think that it would be wrong to impose their ethics on her. So in this particular case.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thorny situation because like people can make all kinds of rules for their kids' food consumption, and it's a young age too. Like 12 is still so young that I think OP like not just from a moral perspective, but also from like do you want your daughter to still be friends with this girl type of perspective? Like, you have to be very careful in that regard.
Yeah.
Because if her parents find out that you are knowingly going behind their backs to provide her with food that they've explicitly said don't give her, that gets very thorny.
Yeah, well, that's why I was saying if they get like a platter where there's a lot of different options and they supply non-meat options, then OP has plausible deniability and just says, I gave them non-meat options. I wasn't sitting there, looking over their shoulder. So maybe next time I'll do a better job or something like that. I don't know. It is a very thorny situation, and I mean, the thing is like. Amber's, for instance, a vegetarian, and she doesn't eat meat, and I would never want to force her to try and change her points of view just because of my views on it or anything like that. And I mean, I'm largely vegetarian as well, and I think that there are a lot of issues with the meat industry and a lot of those how we acquire meat and how we treat meat and stuff like that, and animals. And it's just an unfortunate situation. And I think that people are going to have to choose their own ethical view on this. And you just can't force people to share your views, is what it boils down to. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Refusing to Take Down My Posters? Hi, for context, I have been a K-pop fan for 6 years now. My favorite group, being Stray Kids, is a boy group. Starting about 3 years ago, I started buying a ton of their merch. Like a lot. I have plushies, skazoos, keychains, a light stick, album, everything. Now, these albums, if you're not familiar with them, contain CDs, photo cards, photo books, and the lyrics to their songs. Some even have small photo IDs and stickers, but all of them have posters, so you can guess I had quite a lot of them. I only recently moved out for college, and considering my parents didn't let me put these posters up in my room when I lived with them, I took the chance to put them up on my current room's walls. Pretty normal, right? Well, my boyfriend didn't think so. When I brought him over for the first time, he was weirded out by my posters because he says that it was disgusting for me to have posters of other men on my wall while I was in a relationship, and he also told me that I was being unfaithful by having these posters. I was pretty surprised since none of my friends or other people I let stay over ever said anything about my posters, not even my parents. Besides, these men are literal celebrities who don't even know my name or the fact that I exist, so he literally wouldn't have anything to worry about. My boyfriend then threatened me that if I wouldn't take the posters down, that he would break up with me. I said no. He was so mad, he legit just walked out without another word. Yesterday, he broke up with me over text. I think this is kind of ridiculous, but am I the jerk? P.S. I don't have a ton of posters in my room, only like 4 or 5 on my wall, as all the other posters that I have are in a drawer. I also wouldn't consider myself obsessed, while some people would, and I understand, but I'm not like thinking of going to Korea just to meet them or anything similar. But I get why some people might think that it's childish or things like that. Alright folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. And honestly, OP, he doesn't sound mature enough to be in a relationship. I mean, like you pointed out, these are celebrities. There's nothing wrong with having, posters of your favorite artists on your wall. I had them all over my wall when I was a teen, and if I wanted to go put up a boy band poster, I don't think Brian would even say anything.
I object.
I'm sure you do.
I think that he said that this is a deal breaker, and that was probably the best course of action for both of them, right? You're allowed to have deal breakers in a relationship. I don't like the fact that he is giving her an ultimatum here, right? But I do think that there was probably a more mature way of saying, look, I think like posters I'm very uncomfortable with them. I think that this relationship probably isn't going to work, and I think that we should probably go our separate ways, right? And because people are allowed to have deal breakers on anything that they want to have, right?
Well, they are, but it also shows that maybe he's not a good person to be in a relationship with if he is this insecure over posters of literal celebrities who you're not going to meet.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of guys growing up also have posters of women on their walls, right? And the question I have is, does he have any of these posters on his walls, right? And if he views the posters of women differently than the posters of men, I would ask why that was the case. Now, I don't have any evidence. This is just purely speculative. And, so a lot of people don't put posters up on their wall. So this could just be a complete non-issue, right?
Well, I think some of it too is that like the posters that men put up, and this is like on average, like maybe a bit of a generalization, but they tend to be a lot more sexualized, or they did, whereas, boy band posters, at least, the ones I had in the aughts, were like just a bunch of guys standing together, and they like, maybe they were like posing with their muscles a little bit, but it wasn't like, even a lot of times they're fully dressed and like,
A lot of times they're fully dressed.
Yeah. I mean, all the ones I had were fully dressed, but sometimes there would be shirtless guys.
I just was putting words in your mouth. That's all.
And so, I think if he has posters that he thinks about in a certain way, he may be attributing things to OP that OP isn't even attributing to them herself.
Yeah. So this might just be projection, is kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, it would still be a double standard, but like.
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Putting a Garden Gnome on My Lawn? I only take to the subreddit for stupid things, it seems. Hi, I'm a 26-year-old female here. I recently bought my first house in a cute little neighborhood. There are 12 houses on our street, no HOA, no rules about lawn design. Only a rule that the roofs can't be black. Cool, whatever. My neighbor, we'll call him Mr. Thomas, 65-ish, male, right across the street, has a garden stuffed, and I mean stuffed, with garden gnomes. They're everywhere. They climb up the water drain, they're on the porch, they're on the grass, it's a whole thing. It's not my style, but it's fine. I moved in the first week of March, and the day after, Mr. Thomas came to say hi. He introduced himself and brought me a garden gnome as a welcome gift. I thought that it was absolutely hideous, but I thanked him and I put it in the shed and he left. The following day, I brought all the neighbors some self-made cookies. Mr. Thomas and his wife got some too and they seemed happy about it. Well, 2 or 3 days later, I was walking my dog and Mr. Thomas stopped me and asked why I hadn't put my gnome in my front yard. I didn't tell him that I hated the gnome. I just told him that I had something else in mind for my garden, which I hadn't gotten around to yet, which is true. And the gnome was doing a formidable job at guarding my tools in the shed. He got really upset and snappy with me and told me that he's been living in this street for 30 years and every neighbor gets a gnome as a welcome gift and every neighbor puts them up in their front yard. I didn't really pay much mind up until that point, but once he mentioned it, I noticed that there was a garden gnome in every front yard. He mentioned how it's a tradition and everybody's got to do it. I asked him if he wanted the gnome back, and he didn't like where I put it, and he said no. So I just calmly told him that I most likely wasn't going to put the gnome in the front lawn. I thanked him again for the gift and wished him a nice day and left. Well, ever since, I noticed that a handful of other neighbors have let their garden gnomes disappear, and now Mr. Thomas hates me. I get the stink eye every time we spot each other, and my neighbor next door, the sweet old lady, bless her heart, told me that he's apparently complaining about me on the regular. I told my friends this story, and one of them said that I should have just put the gnome in the front yard to make the old man happy. Am I the jerk for not doing so? All right, folks, what do you think?
Oh, OP, I don't think you realize the gravity of the situation he's been put in. You see, there's a reason why his house is surrounded by garden gnomes. It's because the gnomes run the show, and if you don't do their bidding, then you're in for a not very good time. So by not putting the gnome in your front yard, you're actually putting Mr. Thomas in grave risk for his life.
And there's a horror story to be written about that.
I mean, there are plenty of horror stories already written. I don't remember the exact details, but I was kind of thinking of like Attack of the Garden Gnomes. It's a Goosebumps book.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, no, OP, you're not the jerk. A gift needs to be given without expectations. Like, is it annoying when you give someone a gift and they don't use it? Yes, but then just don't give them another gift. You cannot demand that someone put something on their lawn. You cannot make something a tradition just because you want it to be. Like, you can make the giving of the gnomes a tradition, but you can't demand that they then get put on someone's lawn.
Yeah, I feel a little bad for Mr. Thomas here. I don't feel bad that he's being so demanding and such a mean-spirited individual in this particular case, but there's something that he really loves and enjoys and wants to share with other people, and up to this point, he thought other people really loved and enjoyed it as well, right? And I can understand him being a bit upset or even heartbroken about that, but, that's on him to kind of regulate those emotions, right? Now, OP isn't required to put the gnome out, and it might have been a nice thing to do. It might have been a nice gesture, but they're still not required to do it, right? And the fact that he is now talking badly about OP behind their back, just because they didn't put the garden gnome out front, I think says a lot about his character, right? Like, this would be one thing if he would be disappointed and just said, oh, well, if you ever change your mind and you want more gnomes, please let me know. I'll provide you with some gnomes. But, him turning nasty like this, I think, does say a lot about him as an individual, and that this isn't just about the gnomes at a certain point, right? So I think that OP, of course, isn't required to put the gnomes out, right? And OP did put it to use and said that it's guarding tools in their shed, and he should be happy about that and still be happy that OP appreciates the gift. And it would also be different if OP was mean-spirited about this and was like, actually, I've got a good place for this, grabs the gnome and then takes a golf club to it or something like that. Yeah, that would be extremely rude and mean to do right in front of Mr. Thomas too, right? But that's not what OP did. OP literally just said, oh, I put it in the shed and it's guarding my tools. I have other plans for my garden. Thank you. And so I think that, again, he's treating this like OP has just personally insulted him when that's not the case, right? And OP also can't control what the other neighbors do with their gnomes. So I wouldn't feel bad if I were OP in that respect. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here. And Amber, she has a joke.
Why was the cat sitting by the computer?
Well, I think that the cat was sitting by the computer because the cat was in space with the astronaut and the space bar was there too. And so the space bar, the cat, and the computer walk into a bar. The bartender looks at them and says, what is this, some kind of joke? And that's why.
To keep an eye on the mouse. And it is a very special day today.
It is.
It is Buildable Botanicals Day. So I'll see if I can bring this a little closer. It's just a little buildable flower thing my mom gave me for Valentine's Day. So some knockoff Lego flowers. It says plant good wishes on it. So.
Yes. So plant some good wishes.
This is the kind of thing that I have on my desk.
And I have some matcha, some special guest tea. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Friday, Junior.
Happy Friday, Junior.
Thanks so much to Amber for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance, and please have it on gnomes.
They're watching you.
Yes, they're always watching you. They always are watching you, preparing for their move, for the final strike. So keep an eye on them. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Yeah, one of the first books your mom gave me was like How to Survive a Garden Gnome Attack or something like that.
Yeah.
So we have a long history. I have zombie garden gnomes from Brian's mom too.
Yes.
Bye.